Birth control poison, 2016. Birth control pills are making children gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Birthcontrolpoison.com. Birth control poison at anonymousspeech.com. Birth control pills, also known as synthetic estrogen, stays in women's bodies for many months even after they stop using them. During pregnancy, the synthetic hormones alter children's fragile brain development in the womb. The pills very often cause children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Danger: synthetic estrogen is poison for your children. This video is all about science and truth. Stress. Stress can alter the estrogen hormones in a woman's body. From early humans to the 1930s, stress during pregnancy was the #1 cause of children being born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. My discovery. In 2010, I moved to one of the largest college towns in the United States. From 2010 to 2012, I observed that up to 85% of the college students at undisclosed university were gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Most of the gay, lesbian, and bisexual college students subtly looked like clones of each other when looking into their eyes and faces. I knew something chemical caused them to be born that way since their eyes showed physical symptoms of a womb-altering drug. After a lot of thought, I realized birth control pills were the cause of up to 85% of the college students being gay, lesbian, and bisexual. I knew that birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, were used by most of the college students' mothers before pregnancy. I started researching birth control pills on the internet and learned birth control pills are synthetic estrogen. I then learned that the DES pills and Primodos pills also caused children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual in the past. The FDA and Big Pharma don't want people to know about the history of synthetic estrogen. Diethylstilbestrol, DES pills, were used from 1938 to 1971. They were synthetic estrogen pills, now banned worldwide. Primodos pills were used from 1959 to 1978. They were synthetic estrogen pills, now banned worldwide. Birth control pills were used from 1960 to present. They are synthetic estrogen pills. DES pills, Primodos pills, and birth control pills all cause children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. All are synthetic estrogen. Daniel Sheehan, PhD, retired senior toxicologist at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's National Center for Toxicological Research and director of estrogen-based program, stated that infants fed soy-based formulas have been placed at risk in a large, uncontrolled, and basically unmonitored human infant experiment. Daniel Sheehan, quote from February 18, 1999, "Soy is synthetic estrogen." Mission statement. Birth control pills are synthetic estrogen, extremely harmful to children developing in the womb. Women who use birth control pills before becoming pregnant often end up giving birth to gay, lesbian, and bisexual children. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, alters children's development in the womb. The synthetic estrogen stays in women's bodies for many months even after they stop using birth control pills. When a woman takes birth control pills every day for years straight, there becomes an excess of synthetic hormones built up in her body. It takes a very long time for that synthetic estrogen to be processed out of a woman's body. When a child is developing inside of a mother's womb, that is a very crucial thing. The severity of the gay, lesbian, and bisexual side effects on children depend on how much synthetic estrogen is still in a woman's body during her pregnancy. 3% of people have always been born gay, lesbian, or bisexual throughout human history. The reason for that is because their mother's natural estrogen hormones were off balance during pregnancy. The synthetic estrogen from birth control pills is emulating that natural process of why people are born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Synthetic estrogen drastically alters children's development in the womb. In the past, synthetic estrogen pills called DES, Diethylstilbestrol, caused many children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual because their mothers used the pills during pregnancy. DES was banned because of the many side effects. The DES disaster was quickly swept under the rug. Most people these days have never even heard of DES. I created this video to make the world aware of the extremely harmful side effects of synthetic estrogen birth control pills on children so that the pills become banned worldwide. Scientists had good intent when they created birth control pills. FDA approval in 1960. The problem is that scientists in 1960 didn't realize that pills would alter children's brain development in the womb. Birth control pills were quickly approved without even realizing that synthetic estrogen harms children in utero. This video makes aware that epidemic proportions of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people in the United States and around the world caused directly because their mothers used birth control pills before they became pregnant. Statistically, only 3% or less of the world population should be gay, lesbian, or bisexual. I traveled across the UA and found firsthand that up to 85% of college students aged 18 to 22 years old born in the United States are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Those statistics are real, based on my firsthand real-world research and observations spanning many years. It is not because of more social acceptance, and it is not a case of people being bi-curious. They were born that way because of birth control pill side effects on children while they were developing in their mother's womb. Up to 85% may sound high to people that are unaware of the situation with U.S. college students, but the fact is that the majority of USA mothers in the 1990s used birth control pills before becoming pregnant. That is why up to 85% of USA college students in 2016 are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. The following is a quote by Daniel Sheehan, PhD, retired senior toxicologist at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's National Center for Toxicological Research and director of estrogen-based program. Development is recognized as the most sensitive life stage for estrogen toxicity because of the indisputable evidence of a very wide variety of frank malformations and serious functional deficits in experimental animals and humans. Estrogen in children's womb development. People have been born gay, lesbian, and bisexual since the beginning of human evolution. The reason for that is because their mother's estrogen levels were off balance during the time that the mother became pregnant with them. X and Y chromosomes are responsible for establishing if a baby's physical body is a male body or female body. The estrogen hormones in a woman's body decide on the brain development, male brain or female brain. Throughout human history, most women have had balanced hormone levels in their bodies during pregnancy. For the 3% of women whose estrogen hormones were off balance during pregnancy, their children's development in the womb was altered, causing the children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Since around 1960, women have been putting synthetic estrogen hormones, birth control pills, into their bodies. Parents have been unknowingly subjecting their children to the harmful side effects of synthetic estrogen. The world's worst endocrine disruptor has been hiding in plain sight. DES was the world's first synthetic estrogen disaster, and birth control pills will be the last synthetic estrogen disaster. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, are altering children's brain development in the womb. I lived in a huge college town for 5 years, and I have traveled to many universities around the United States. I have personally seen with my own eyes that up to 85% of college students are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. The chemical look in brain development. When I look at people's faces and eyes, either in person or on TV, I can tell whether their mothers use birth control pills or not. There is a visible chemical look in people's faces and eyes if their mothers use birth control pills. This look is much more evident in women's faces and eyes. However, I can see the chemical look in guys' faces and eyes too. Anyone can see this chemical look in people's faces and eyes. The difference is I pay attention to people's faces and eyes much more than the average person. I can instantly tell if people's mothers use birth control pills or not. The point that I'm making is that since I can look at people and visibly tell from their face and eyes that their mothers use birth control pills, the pills are obviously having physical and mental side effects on children in the womb. I can go to any university in America and point out students whose mothers use birth control pills with a 100% success rate. I'll even gladly take part in any controlled scientific study and still point out people with a 100% success rate. For instance, researchers could pick out 50 college-age girls whose mothers use birth control pills and 50 college-age girls whose mothers didn't use birth control pills, then mix the girls all together and line them up in a gymnasium. I could walk down the line of 100 girls and point out exactly the 50 girls that are birth control daughters and exactly the 50 girls whose mothers didn't use birth control pills with a 100% success rate every time. Same for guys too. The reason I can tell is because there is a chemical look in people's faces and eyes whose mothers use birth control pills. Birth control pills affects people's faces, eyes, and brain development in the womb. I can see the chemical look in children's faces and eyes all the way up to people in their 50s. I instantaneously Within the blink of an eye, visibly identify people whose mothers use birth control pills. I see them in every town that I go to in the United States and all over the place. This is a huge epidemic in America. Over the past many years, I have traveled to many colleges, towns, cities, and states in the USA, researching why so many college students and people in general that I met were gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Synthetic estrogen is the #1 threat to unborn children worldwide. Women should never use birth control pills while also avoiding soy products, BPA, phthalates, etc. These two girls' mothers both use the same exact brand of birth control pills. They look like clones of each other. The girl on the left is Madison Ivy, adult film star. She's dating a girl named Heather Starlett. The girl on the right is a girl from the TV show called Bar Rescue, the episode called Bug Bite. These two guys' mothers both use the same exact brand of birth control pills. Their eyes have the same chemical look in them. The guy on the left is Matt Bomer, TV actor. He's openly gay. The guy on the right is Carson Daly, TV host. Homeostasis, the tendency of a system, especially the physiological system of higher animals, to maintain internal stability owing to the coordinated response of its parts to any situation or stimulus that would tend to disturb its normal condition or function. The hormones in a woman's body are meant to be in a normal homeostasis state. Birth control pills are synthetic hormones that damage a woman's natural hormonal endocrine system. General time guidelines of what happens to children when their mothers use birth control pills. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, stays in women's bodies for 6 months to 2 years after they stop using the pills. Birth control pills are altering the physical development and brain development of children in utero. Birth control pills can also permanently disrupt women's natural endocrine systems, meaning that their children can be born gay, lesbian, or bisexual, regardless of the amount of time between stopping birth control pill usage and getting pregnant. National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Research shows that endocrine disruptors, birth control pills, may pose the greatest risk during prenatal and early postnatal development when organ and neural systems are forming. The timing of exposure is also critical. Most critical stages of development occur in utero, where the fertilized egg divides, rapidly developing every structure of a fully formed baby, including much of the wiring in the brain. Interfering with the hormonal communication in utero can have profound effects both structurally and toward brain development. Depending on the stage of reproductive development, interference with hormonal signaling can result in irreversible effects not seen in adults exposed to the same dose for the same length of time. Disruption of thyroid function early in development may be the cause of abnormal sexual development in both males and females. DES, diethylstilbestrol, a toxic and carcinogenic synthetic estrogen, is the world's first drug disaster. It was prescribed to millions of pregnant women for decades, from 1938 until 1971, and in a small number of cases for several years thereafter in the United States, and until the mid-1980s in parts of Latin America, Europe, Australia, and the Third World. The currently proven effects of exposure include a rare vaginal cancer in DES daughters, greater risk for breast cancer in DES mothers, possible risk for testicular cancer in DES sons, abnormal reproductive organs, infertility, high-risk pregnancies, and an increased risk for breast cancer in DES daughters after age 40. There are a number of other suspected effects, including autoimmune disorders, but many of these effects are still awaiting further research. As early as 1938, studies showed that DES promoted cancer in lab animals. A mouse study in 1941 showed mice with absent or deformed fallopian tubes, but at that time, people thought animal studies only provided a hint of what can happen in humans. Also, no one knew that drugs could cross the placenta and affect a baby in utero. No controlled studies were ever conducted by the drug companies to determine the effectiveness or safety of DES for use during pregnancy. Even after some scientists started questioning the efficiency in the 1950s, as early as 1953, research revealed that DES did not work, that DES actually brought about higher rates of premature birth and infant mortality. Yet DES continued to be prescribed to pregnant women for decades. This is because pharmaceutical companies continued to heavily promote DES use to doctors. The drug was a top moneymaker for Big Pharma. On February 22, 2011, U.S. Senator John Kerry and U.S. Senator Scott Brown received a 3-page response from the Food and Drug Administration per their joint letter about a DES apology. The FDA's letter did not contain an official apology from the federal government for the DES drug disaster. However, it acknowledged the devastating health consequences of DES, explained FDA initiatives to prevent future drug disasters, and talked about DES as being a tragedy. National Cancer Institute. DES is now known to be an endocrine disrupting chemical, one of a number of substances that interfere with the endocrine system to cause cancer, birth defects, and other developmental abnormalities. The effects of endocrine disrupting chemicals are most severe when exposure occurs during fetal development. Many DES sons and DES daughters were born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Synthetic estrogen affects children's development in their mother's wombs. Over 5 million mothers took DES pills, synthetic estrogen, during their pregnancy. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, and progesterone hormones stay in women's bodies for many months after they stop taking them and are still in most women's bodies during pregnancy. Definition of what gay, lesbian, and bisexual actually mean. Gay. If a male is gay, it means he has a female brain. His female brain development occurred while he was in his mother's womb. A female brain is often accompanied by feminine physical features, more feminine face and body. A female brain also entails female mental characteristics and traits stemming from evolution. Lesbian. If a female is lesbian, it means she has a male brain. Her male brain development occurred while she was in her mother's womb. A male brain is often accompanied by masculine physical features, more masculine face and body. A male brain also entails male mental characteristics and traits stemming from evolution. Bisexual. If a person is bisexual, it means that they have a part male brain and a part female brain. This person's mixed brain development occurred while they were in their mother's womb. Physical features of a bisexual person can vary. Mental characteristics and traits of a bisexual person can vary. Recap. DES was first prescribed in the USA in 1940. It took over 3 decades for people to realize the side effects it had on the children who were in their mother's womb while their mothers used DES. Birth control pills were first prescribed in 1960. It has also taken decades for people to realize the side effects the pills are having on children while they are developing in their mother's wombs. Synthetic estrogen is dangerous. Women should not use any type of synthetic estrogen products. Diethylstilbestrol, DES pills. DES, diethylstilbestrol, product names. DES, one of the biggest medical disasters in history. My personal research has been on birth control pills causing children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. However, many DES sons and DES daughters have reported being born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. DES, diethylstilbestrol pills, were in use from 1938 to 1971, was a toxic and carcinogenic synthetic estrogen proven to have crossed the placenta and harmfully affected babies in utero. The American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists has documented that prenatal DES exposure in males is positively linked to a condition known as hypogonadism, low testosterone levels that may require treatment with testosterone replacement therapy. Various neurological changes occur after prenatal exposure of embryonic males to DES and other estrogenic endocrine disruptors. Animals that exhibited these structural and neurological changes were also shown to demonstrate various gender-related behavioral changes, so-called feminization of males. Several published studies in the medical literature on psychoneuroendocrinology have examined the hypothesis that prenatal exposure to estrogen, including DES, may cause significant developmental impact on sexual differentiation of the brain and on subsequent behavioral and gender identity development in exposed males and females. There is significant evidence linking prenatal hormonal influences on gender identity and transsexual development. In 1999, Dr. Scott Kurlan, founder of the DES Sons International Network, began researching the effects of diethylstilbestrol on the health of genetic males who had been exposed prenatally. When it became apparent that a significant portion of his research group were either transsexual, transgendered, or intersexed, he began to explore the possibility of a connection between prenatal DES exposure and gender variance. Dr. Kurlan is not the first researcher to note a correlation between DES exposure and feminized behavior in genetic males. Studies go back as far as 1973. However, Dr. Kurlan has delved much deeper than those who came before him. In 2005, Dana Bayer presented a breakthrough paper with her colleagues Dr. Scott Kurlan and Dr. Milton Diamond to the International Behavioral Development Symposium, delineating the impact diethylstilbestrol has had in causing intersex and gender variations in human beings. The following is an article about DES affecting children in utero, written by medical doctor and DES son Dana Bayer. A guest essay by Dana Bayer, medical doctor, December 6, 2008. Quote, I spent the first half-century of my life searching for the reason I was assigned, reared, and living as a man, even though I knew I was female. As a child, it was utterly confusing, and when coming out to my parents led to threats of incarceration in the state mental hospital. Being the smart little kid that I was, I went silent and focused on trying to determine the cause of my misery. I could never imagine, in my wildest dreams or fantasies, ever transitioning and living full-time as myself. I couldn't even imagine spending even a day in public as a woman. So I focused my attention on an academic future, scouring all the major libraries in the Northeast, reading everything I could about gender-variant behavior, trying to understand how I became who I was. My cover being near perfect, I could do this research without arousing suspicion. I could even ask my mother questions about her pregnancy with me and my brother and try to tease out some information that might help me. One day she mentioned having taken the drug DES, or Diethylstilbestrol, to prevent miscarriage. Having miscarried her first time around and being the dutiful woman that most were back in the 1950s, she took this drug, which had come highly touted from the Harvard labs. She told me she was always concerned about her exposure, but could never really learn anything about it and was afraid to speak out. I, however, as a medical student, was under no such constraints. So I learned that the drug had been banned by the FDA in 1971 after having been tied to a cluster of 8 cases of vaginal adenocarcinoma in very young women. This had been unheard of in the Boston area. Epidemiologists eventually traced the tumor to DES exposure in utero, and the drug was pulled. Eventually, I learned about additional long-term consequences of DES exposure, but the vast majority of them were in those assigned female. Even female homosexuality was recognized as a complication, along with breast cancer in the mothers as well as daughters, and an epidemic of infertility. A group, DES Action, sprang up in the 1970s, fueled by the young women's movement and books such as Our Bodies, Ourselves. Lawsuits were filed and won, Congress got into the act, and DES was eventually recognized as the worst drug disaster in American history. 5 million women were poisoned, and while the vaginal tumor developed in only 1 in 1,000, it was still a true tragedy. But what about those assigned as male? Nothing. While males were part of the few long-term follow-up studies, nothing more than a whisper of testicular cancer or a variety of genitourinary tract anomalies popped up. DES Action put a man with brain cancer as a front for a DES Sons group, yet he didn't even have internet or email capabilities, effectively shutting down any effective advocacy for those men. We all know men are uncomfortable with their bodies and don't like to talk about their medical problems. The DES researchers, generally men, were not investigating issues of human sexuality either, so it became very easy to announce the drug has no effects on male offspring. This, in spite of the fact that DES was a super estrogen, capable of crossing the placental and blood-brain barriers and bathing the developing male brain with an overdose of estrogen before neurodevelopment had progressed very far. Those dosages of estrogen sure seemed to be capable of overwhelming the testosterone produced by the fetus's testes, but the possibility was not taken seriously, except by basic science researchers such as Professor John McLachlan of Tulane University, who studied DES effects on rodents. At a congressional hearing on DES in 2001, I bumped into the good professor and recounted my personal history. He told me that my medical history was a classic for DES exposure, referred me to his papers, and I finally had my answers. Funny thing, by that time, I had decided I could no longer live as a male and had decided to transition, so it no longer mattered to me existentially, but I had the answer. As the medical advisor to Dr. Scott Kurland's DES Sons International listserv, I had been toying with outing myself as transgender. Finally, I came out, and that opened the door to hundreds of other exposed DES Sons. Strange how things happen. That flood inspired Scott to start collecting data online, leading to his presentation of a paper at the eHormone conference at Tulane in 2004, and my presentation, along with a nationally renowned intersex expert, Dr. Milton Diamond, of an expanded version of the paper at the International Behavior Development Symposium in Minot, North Dakota in 2005. All the heavy hitters were there: Bailey, Blanchard, Zucker, Meyer, Ballberg. And while they were able to ignore the paper because of our lack of proof in medical histories which had been destroyed decades earlier, the younger and more open-minded researchers accepted our thesis. Shortly thereafter, Shanna Swan published her paper proving for the first time in humans that endocrine disruptors, of which DES is a paradigmatic compound, cause feminization of male fetuses. This past summer, Congress banned the importation and sale of children's toys containing one of the more ubiquitous endocrine-disrupting chemicals, a class of molecules called phthalates. Progress may come slowly, in fits and starts, but it does come. It will come if people will it to happen." End quote. Medical doctor and DES son, Dana Bayer. Translation of this 1957 DES poster. Warning, this poster contains 100% lies. Really? Yes. DES-Plex to prevent abortion, miscarriage, and premature labor. Recommended for routine prophylaxis in all pregnancies. 96% live delivery with DES-Plex in one series of 1,200 patients. Bigger and stronger babies, too. No gastric or other side effects with DES-Plex in either high or low dosage. Each DES-Plex tablet starts with 25 milligrams of diethylstilbestrol, USP, which is then ultramicronized to smooth and accelerate absorption and activity. A portion of this ultramicronized diethylstilbestrol is even included in the tablet coating to assure prompt help in emergencies. DES-Plex tablets also contain vitamin C and certain members of the vitamin B complex to aid detoxification in pregnancy and the effectuation of estrogen. For further data and a generous trial supply of DES-Plex, write to Medical Director, Grant Chemical Company, Brooklyn, New York, 26. DES caused dozens of side effects in children and also caused abortion, miscarriage, and premature labor. Many of the DES children were born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. The pharmaceutical companies lied to women so they could make billions of dollars. The Food and Drug Administration should have never approved DES. Do not trust the FDA or companies that produce synthetic estrogen pills. DES synthetic estrogen pills poisoned over 5 million children. Primodos pills. Primodos product names. My personal research has been on birth control pills causing children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. However, many Primodos sons and Primodos daughters have reported being born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Primodos pills were in use from 1959 to 1978, was a toxic synthetic estrogen proven to have crossed the placenta and harmfully affected babies in utero. Primodos was first prescribed as a hormone pregnancy test in the 1960s and 1970s in England and Germany and the United Kingdom. Over 1.5 million women used Primodos synthetic estrogen pills. The producer of these pills were a German company named Schering, which was taken over by Bayer in 2006. Primodos synthetic estrogen pills weren't accurate at testing for pregnancy, caused high rates of abortion, miscarriages, congenital birth defects, genital malformation, and altered brain development due to the high dosages of this synthetic estrogen during the children's fragile early brain development stage. Primodos contained northisterone, also known as northindrone, and ethinyl estradiol. Northisterone, which is progestin and progesterone, and ethinyl estradiol are in current-day birth control pills. There was a Schering-Bayer rat study undertaken in 1961. It took until 1969 before they sent this warning letter to the Committee for Safety in Medicine. This letter specifically stated that Primodos should be removed from the market due to the high incidence of abortion rates in their rat studies. At least 35 studies from 1960 onward suggested the drug may have caused miscarriages and birth defects. Already in 1967, the then Committee on Safety of Drugs was warned by Dr. Isabel Gall, a pediatrician at Queen Mary's Hospital for Children, that fetal abnormalities were associated with the use of hormonal pregnancy testing. In the same year of 1967, a new and easy method of confirming pregnancy had become available, measuring the level of hormones already present in the body by a simple urine test. Rival company named Roussel Pharmaceutical in France showed integrity by removing its hormone pregnancy test named Eminor Forte from the market in 1969 when they learned of the warnings against Primodos. Even after many validated warnings of the harmful effects the Primodos synthetic estrogen pills were having on children in the womb, Schering-Bayer Pharmaceutical Company kept selling Primodos pills until 1978. Billion-dollar profits were more important to Big Pharma Bayer than the health and well-being of children. Primodos pills were banned worldwide in 1978, yet birth control pills contain the same ingredients that were in Primodos pills. The following is an excerpt from an article about Primodos pills affecting children in utero. Nicola from Bolton spent 3 days in the archives earlier this year uncovering previously unseen files containing the keyword Primodos. Many of them archived by public bodies such as the Medical Research Council and Committee on Safety of Medicines had been sealed for decades due to the sensitive nature of their content. Among her findings are doctors' recommendations that Primodos should be withdrawn from use. One letter from June 1967, written by the neuropsychiatrist Derek Richer, then director of the Medical Research Council, is particularly striking. It looks as if this could be another thalidomide story, he writes. Dr. Isabel Gall has heard these words before. When she first raised concerns about hormone pregnancy testing as a young doctor recently arrived in Britain from Hungary, her superior told her the same thing. Shortly afterwards, however, she says she was frozen out of the profession. This was, she considers, because of a reference she made in her original article to the oral contraceptive pill, birth control pills, which the government was seeking to promote at the time. Because her claims cast the pill in a bad light, she believes they were rejected without proper investigation. Her research was a landmark for campaigners, but she had not spoken about it in 50 years. Like a silly young researcher, I put in my article that this might also apply to the oral contraceptive birth control pills, she explains, now a frail 88-year-old cared for by her husband Andre at their home in Teddington, southwest London. I wrote that it had the same constituents as hormone pregnancy tests. Because of that, I was extremely unpopular. Everyone was dismissive. After half a year, I was thrown out of my job. I tried to get another. I applied to every advert, but I got nothing. It was because they thought I was working against the oral contraceptive birth control pills. Her reputation ruined, Dr. Gala ended up leaving the profession. Still, she says, I could not forget what I had found. Many people are affected. I put in my paper that these people, the drug manufacturer sharing, ought to be investigated. From a scientific point of view, that is still important. Dr. Isabel Gall with her husband Andre. What's really disturbing is that birth control pills contain the same ingredients that were in Primodos pills. Adverse Reaction Series number 16, November 1977. Hormonal Pregnancy Tests and Congenital Abnormalities, a Further Statement. Committee on Safety of Medicines. In June 1975, the Committee on Safety of Medicines published a warning about a possible association between hormonal pregnancy tests and congenital abnormalities. That publication was based on preliminary evidence. Further results have now been published, and the association is confirmed. The committee therefore reiterate their view, expressed in their earlier warning, which is attached, that hormonal tests for pregnancy should not be used. Alternative methods are available which are free from this risk. Most of the preparations referred to in the earlier leaflet were removed from the market. The data sheets for those which remain for other indications state clearly that pregnancy is a contraindication to their use. Primodos synthetic estrogen pills poisoned over 2 million children. Birth control pills. Birth control pill product names. Timeline of birth control pills. April 1956. The first large-scale clinical trials for the pill take place in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rican women were used as test subjects. November. The news of the pill spreads to the general public. An article in Science magazine informs readers that women have taken a synthetic hormone as an oral contraceptive, and it works. Summer of 1957, the FDA approves the use of Enivid for the treatment of severe menstrual disorders and requires the drug label to carry the warning that Enivid will prevent ovulation. 1959, less than 2 years after FDA approval of Enivid for therapeutic purposes, an unusually large number of American women mysteriously develop severe menstrual disorders and ask their doctors for the drug. By late 1959, over 500,000 American women are taking Enivid, presumably for the off-label contraceptive purposes. May 11, 1960, Searle receives FDA approval to sell Enivid as a birth control pill. Searle is the first and only pharmaceutical company to sell an oral contraceptive, and it has a lucrative monopoly. In the 1960s, the pharmaceutical industry awakens to the huge market for effective contraception, and 13 major drug companies, 9 of them American, work to develop new birth control methods and their own versions of the pill. 1962, 1.2 million American women are on the pill. 1963, 2.3 million American women are using the pill. 1964, 1/4 of all couples in America using birth control choose the pill. 1965, just 5 years after the FDA approval, more than 6.5 million American women are taking oral contraceptives, making the pill the most popular form of birth control in the U.S. 1967, over 12.5 million women worldwide are on the pill. 1970, birth control pill sales dropped by 20% because medical journalist Barbara Seaman publishes the book The Doctor's Case Against the Pill and brings national attention to the dangers of the pill. 1973, the number of American women on the pill reaches 10 million. 1984, an estimated 50 to 80 million women worldwide take the pill. 2016, over 100 million worldwide take the pill. Population was much smaller in the United States in the 1960s and 1970s, so I want to point out how common American birth control pill use was in simple terms. 1963, 1 in 13 American women of reproductive age, 18 to 38, in 1963 used birth control pills. 1973, 1 in 3 American women of reproductive age, 18 to 38, in 1973 used birth control pills. 1996, the majority of women in the United States use birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, before or during pregnancy. 2016, there was a very clear reason why up to 85% of college students 18 to 22 years old and up to 70% of non-college people 18 to 22 years old in the United States are being born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. When birth control pills were first created, nobody ever thought what the effects of those synthetic estrogen hormones would have on children developing in their mother's wombs. The pills were never proven safe for children in utero. The extremely high number of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people in the USA is a direct result of birth control pills. Eastern European countries. The majority of the people in Eastern European countries are still straight. Birth control pills weren't introduced into Eastern European countries until the late 1980s or 1990s. Even though mother's birth control pill use slowly rises each year in Eastern Europe, society in those countries hasn't been fully subjected to the harm that pills are having on children like many other countries with extremely high LGBT rates. Birth control pills, 1960 to present, are a toxic synthetic estrogen already proven to cross the placenta and currently harmfully affecting babies in utero. The birth control pill's synthetic estrogen is still in most women's bodies during pregnancy. The pill's synthetic hormones stay in women's bodies for many months after they stop taking them. This chart shows the levels of synthetic estrogen starting with high levels to low levels as the months go on. The number of months after going off birth control pills. The synthetic hormone levels in a woman's body start dropping lower each month. However, most women still have synthetic estrogen hormones in their bodies during their 9 months of pregnancy. That chart is only an example. The pill's synthetic hormones may stay in women's bodies for up to 2 years or longer. The factor in determining if a birth control child will be born gay, lesbian, bisexual, or straight is 1. How many years did said woman use birth control pills? The amount of years a woman uses the pills accounts for how long, number of months, the synthetic estrogen will stay in her body after she stops using the pills. 2. How many days or weeks or months or years did said woman wait to get pregnant after she stopped taking the pills? How long the mother waits determines if the child will be born gay, lesbian, bisexual, or straight. Even after a woman stops using birth control pills, there are still extremely high levels of synthetic estrogen in her body, and it takes many months for that synthetic estrogen to process out of that woman's body. Women should wait at least 2 years before getting pregnant. Although the synthetic estrogen may stay in women's bodies for more than 2 years, it is important to know that millions of women every year get pregnant while on the pills. There is no safe way to time pregnancy around the synthetic estrogen in a woman's body. The only safe thing is for birth control pills, synthetic estrogen being banned worldwide. The higher the levels of synthetic estrogen in a woman's body during her pregnancy, the worse the effects will be on the child developing in her womb. Most people whose mothers use birth control pills have a visible chemical look in their faces and eyes from the synthetic estrogen. Also, brain development is affected. When a woman takes birth control pills every day for years straight, there becomes an excess of synthetic hormones built up in her body. Hence why the synthetic hormones stay in women's bodies for 6 months to 2 years after a woman last uses birth control pills. Billion-dollar profits versus the health of babies. From 1938 to 1971, pharmaceutical companies made billions of dollars selling synthetic estrogen pills called Diethylstilbestrol, DES. Over 5 million women use Diethylstilbestrol, DES pills, unknowingly harming their children during pregnancy. For decades, women assumed that those synthetic estrogen pills were safe since they were 1. Approved by the Food and Drug Administration, 2. Available at the doctor's office. Most women assume that birth control pills are safe to use, just like many women in the past assumed that DES pills were safe to use. FDA approval of Diethylstilbestrol was a disaster. The same thing goes for birth control pills. As early as 1953, research revealed that DES pills were harming children during pregnancy, yet DES continued to be prescribed to pregnant women for decades. Billion-dollar profits were more important to those pharmaceutical companies than the health of children. No controlled studies were ever conducted by the drug companies to determine the effectiveness or safety of DES for use during pregnancy. Birth control pills have never, and will never, be proven safe for children during womb development. Diethylstilbestrol synthetic estrogen pills were used by women during pregnancy. The synthetic estrogen birth control pills stays in women's bodies for many months even after they stop using them. The pills are still in their bodies during pregnancy. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration removed Diethylstilbestrol pills off the market only after the U.S. Congress got involved and forced them to do so. Each birth control pill company makes around $2 billion per year. They may deny the facts in this video in order to protect their billion-dollar profits. May 11th, 1960. Searle received FDA approval to sell Enovid as a birth control pill. Searle was the first and only pharmaceutical company to sell an oral contraceptive, and it had a lucrative monopoly. Here is some more information about Searle. When the G.D. Searle Company sought FDA approval for NutraSweet, they submitted doctored, fraudulent studies, so corrupt that the Department of Justice appointed 2 prosecutors to investigate Searle. Searle's lawyers hired the prosecutors, and the case died with a statute of limitations. Senator Ted Kennedy said the extensive nature of the almost unbelievable range of abuses discovered by the FDA on several major Searle products is profoundly disturbing. The Food and Drug Administration should have never approved birth control pills. Do not trust the FDA or companies that produce synthetic estrogen pills. Birth control pills are poisoning millions of children. Soy products. Giving infant babies soy formula is essentially the same as feeding them birth control pills. Even though most brain development in babies occurs while they are in the womb, their brain development in the infant stage is still fragile. Soy contains very high amounts of estrogen and can alter babies' brain development. Women should never use soy products or birth control pills because they will harm their children in utero. Birth control pills are synthetic estrogen and progesterone hormones. Soybean byproducts are the starting material for progesterone and other steroids. Many food and drink products often contain soy. Asian foods, baked goods and baking mixes, bread, bouillon cubes, candy, cereal, chicken broth, chocolate, deli meats, energy bars, nutrition bars, imitation dairy foods, soy milks, vegan cheese, vegan ice cream, infant formula, margarine, mayonnaise, meat products with fillers, burgers or sausages, etc., nutrition supplements, vitamins, peanut butter and peanut butter substitutes, prenatal vitamins, protein powders, sauces, gravies and soups, smoothies, vegetable broth and vegetable oil, vegetarian meat substitutes, etc. Women should avoid eating or drinking soy entirely. Never give baby food or baby formula that contains soy to an infant. Soy should actually be avoided by all people. Soy is a form of synthetic estrogen. Soy infant formula, birth control pills for babies, phytoestrogens in diets of infants and adults. Children receiving soy formula is their only food intake, and over 10 times the levels of isoflavones on a body weight basis than the amount shown to cause thyroid suppression in adults after 3 months, and about 8 times the levels of isoflavones on a body weight basis as the amount shown to cause hormonal changes in adults after just 1 month. It is clear that the isoflavones in soy infant formula are well absorbed by the infant. Babies on soy formula were found to have levels of serum estrogens at 13,000 to 20,000 times greater than those in infants who had been breastfed or given milk-based formula. According to a Swiss report, 100 milligrams isoflavones taken by adult women provide the estrogenic equivalent of a contraceptive pill. This means that 10 milligrams provides the estrogenic equivalent of a contraceptive pill to a baby of 6 kilograms. Thus, the average amount taken in by a child on soy-based formula provides the estrogenic equivalent of at least 4 birth control pills. Because babies are more vulnerable than adults to the effects of dietary estrogens, the effects could actually be much greater than that of 4 birth control pills. Hence the statement, babies on soy formula receive the estrogenic equivalent of at least 5 birth control pills per day. Daniel Sheehan, PhD, retired senior toxicologist at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's National Center for Toxicology Research and director of estrogen-based program, stated that infants fed soy-based formulas have been placed at risk in a large, uncontrolled, and basically unmonitored human-infant experiment. Researchers Daniel Sheehan and Daniel Dorge, 2 of the Food and Drug Administration's experts on soy, wrote a letter of protest to try and stop the FDA approval of soy as a supposed health benefit. Here are some excerpts from that very important letter. Our conclusions are that no dose is without risk. The extent of risk is simply a function of dose. Development is recognized as the most sensitive life stage for estrogen toxicity because of the indisputable evidence of a very wide variety of frank malformations and serious functional deficits in experimental animals and humans. In the human population, DES exposure stands as a prime example of adverse estrogenic effects during development. Potency and dose differences between DES and the soy isoflavones do not provide any assurance that the soy protein isoflavones per se will be without adverse effects. Furthermore, we need to be concerned about transplacental passage of isoflavones. The DES case has shown us that estrogens can pass the placenta. During pregnancy in humans, isoflavones per se could be a risk factor for abnormal brain and reproductive tract development. Infants fed soy-based formulas have been placed at risk in a large, uncontrolled, and basically unmonitored human-infant experiment. The FDA's own top researchers wrote a letter of protest against the FDA on the subject of soy, synthetic estrogen. First is a story about how the FDA suspiciously approved soy as having a supposed health benefit. The original petition submitted by Protein Technologies International requested that the health claim be made for the soy isoflavones, the plant estrogens found abundantly in soybeans, provided with only weak and conflicting proofs that isoflavones lower cholesterol, and besieged by strong evidence of toxicity and hormone disruption. The FDA should have thrown out the PTA petition and had a duty to do so. Instead, the agency took the unprecedented step of rewriting PTI's petition and substituting a claim for soy protein. This step violated the industry's own regulations. Then the FDA speeded the decision-making process by reducing the time in which members of the public could protest to only 30 days. In doing so, they disregarded the testimony of top scientists at the FDA's own National Center for Toxicological Research, British government researchers, and other qualified experts providing strong evidence of danger from allergens, protease inhibitors, and other soy components, as well as the plant hormones. It's all the more shocking because the FDA never had good evidence of soy's cholesterol-lowering effect to begin with. It relied almost entirely on just one study, a 1995 meta-analysis of 29 studies by James W. Anderson that was sponsored by Protein Technologies International. Soy foods are one of the fastest-growing sectors in the food industry, with retail sales growing from $0.852 billion to $3.2 billion during the decade from 1992 to 2002. In order to accomplish this, the soy industry had to convince a lot of people that soy is good for them. To do that, they've had to cover up and suppress a lot of evidence to the contrary. Just about all soy products in the market contain the phytoestrogens, plant estrogens, known as isoflavones. The biggest danger is the phytoestrogens, plant estrogens, found in all soybeans, organic, conventional, or GMO. Although phytoestrogens are not identical to human estrogens, they are close enough to cause significant hormone disruption, adversely affecting the infant's developing body and brain. Dr. Kayla Daniel. Soy synthetic estrogen baby formula is poisoning millions of children. I'm going to skip voice narration of the following letter for the purpose of saving time. Just pause this video to read the entire letter that warns about the dangers of soy, synthetic estrogen. This letter is extremely important as it pertains to the health of children around the world. This letter was written by Daniel Sheehan, PhD, and Daniel George, PhD, two of the world's leading experts on synthetic estrogen and birth defects. Pictured on the left is the DEA. Pictured in the middle is the FDA. Pictured on the right is the CDC. All three of them are scratching each other's backs. The United States Food and Drug Administration is corrupt. The United States Centers for Disease Control is corrupt. The United States Drug Enforcement Agency is corrupt. All three of those agencies are paid off by the pharmaceutical companies and birth control pill companies. Daniel Sheehan, who was director of the estrogen-based program for the FDA and also the world's leading expert on synthetic estrogen, warned the higher-ups in the FDA about soy, synthetic estrogen, in the year 1999, but they ignored him because the FDA is corrupt. The FDA and pharmaceutical companies are one and the same. Pregnant women. Women should not use any type of synthetic estrogen products. Pregnant women should be very careful what they are exposed to before and during pregnancy. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, are the worst endocrine disruptors on the planet. However, there are other endocrine disruptors that pregnant women should avoid as well. The following list of endocrine disruptors aren't as damaging to children in the womb as birth control pills are. However, they still alter children's brain development in the same way birth control pills do, to a lesser extent. Synthetic estrogen also often causes a shorter anogenital distance in boys and a longer anogenital distance in girls. Most women use birth control pills for many years before becoming pregnant. They directly put synthetic estrogen pills into their bodies on a daily basis for years on end. A very high amount of synthetic estrogen builds up in women's bodies, and that buildup stays in women's bodies anywhere from 6 months to 2 years after they stop using the pills. The reason the following endocrine disruptors aren't as damaging to children in the womb as birth control pills are is because of lower exposure to them. Many women are exposed to BPA on a daily or weekly basis, but they don't swallow pure BPA pills for years straight like they do birth control pills. The following endocrine disruptors should be avoided by pregnant women and infant children. BPA and many other chemicals have been found to behave like synthetic estrogen in lab animal tests. It would be best if women had zero exposure to any and all forms of synthetic estrogen. Synthetic estrogen products that women should avoid: birth control, pills, injections, patches, implants and IUDs, Plan B morning after pills. Soy products, foods that contain soy, drinks that contain soy. BPA, plastics, baby food, plastic bottles, canned food. Oxybenzone, sunscreens, hairspray, cosmetics, plastics. Phthalates, toys, inks, paints, hairsprays, dryer sheets, deodorants, nail polish, perfumes, cling film, shampoo, cosmetics, packaging, lubricants, plastics, solvents, detergents, car interiors, vinyl flooring, air fresheners, garden hoses, shower curtains, medical equipment. Phthalates can enter the body through eating, breathing, and skin contact. Phthalates are used in food processing and packaging. The following list is 4 of the worst phthalates out of many questionable phthalates: DEHP, BBP, DBP, DEP. Diethylstilbestrol, DES, was well documented to cause dozens of horrible side effects in children whose mothers were exposed to the drug, which is why it was banned in 1971. Diethylstilbestrol, or DES, banned in 1971. Diethyl phthalate, or DEP, has the same diethyl in the name, does not sound safe, even from the name alone. Pregnant women must be very careful what they are exposed to before and during pregnancy because it directly affects the baby growing in their womb. The most common things pregnant women must avoid are birth control pills, soy products, cosmetics, hairspray, perfume, lotions, etc. 1. Women should never use birth control pills. 2. Women shouldn't eat or drink any products that contain soy. 3. Women should avoid any consumer products that contains phthalates. Use natural products instead. 4. Women should only drink from glass containers and eat from regular plates to avoid BPA. It's in many plastics. Male and female brains. Brain development occurs in the womb. Millions of women every year get pregnant while still on birth control pills, meaning in the child's first month of brain development, they receive direct estrogen doses through the mother's pill use. Millions of children per year suffer altered brain development from mothers getting pregnant while still on the pills. However, the worst part is that birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, stays in women's bodies for many months even after the woman stops using them. Most women still have synthetic estrogen in their bodies during their 9 months of pregnancy. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, have been harming children around the world since around 1960. There is a visible chemical look in most people's faces and eyes whose mothers use birth control pills. If a baby with a male body develops a female brain in utero, he will be attracted to men as an adult. If a baby with a female body develops a male brain in utero, she will be attracted to women as an adult. If a baby develops a partial male brain and partial female brain, the baby will be bisexual as an adult. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, flips the brain development in babies in utero. In nature, a male brain is hardwired a certain way, and a female brain is hardwired a certain way. A straight man has a male brain and a male body. A straight woman has a female brain and a female body. However, a gay man has a female brain and a male body, and a lesbian woman has a male brain and a female body. Scientific studies have been conducted on male and female brains. Brain wiring comparisons of gay men and straight women were found to be the same. Brain wiring comparisons of lesbian women and straight men were found to be the same. Research at the Stockholm Brain Institute in Sweden found that gay men and straight women have similar brain characteristics. Specifically, these similarities are in the overall size of the brain and the activity of the amygdala. The research found that straight men and lesbian women also have similar brain characteristics. Molecular biologist at the National Institutes of Health, Dean Hammer, says, this is from a series of observations showing there's a biological reason for sexual orientation. Ivanka Savic-Berlung conducted a study in which MRIs were used to measure the volume and shapes of the brain. She also used PET scans to view blood flow to the amygdala. Savic-Berlung found that in gay men and women, the blood flowed to areas involved in fear and anxiety, whereas in straight men and lesbians, it tended to flow to pockets linked to aggression. When looking at hemisphere differences, the right hemisphere was found to be slightly larger than the left in straight males and lesbians, whereas those of gay men and straight women were more symmetrical. Research has indicated that the corpus callosum is larger in gay men than in straight men. This is significant because the corpus callosum is a structure that is developed early. The journal Science showed that the third interstitial nucleus of the hypothalamus has neurons that are packed more together in gay men than in straight men. Connections from the amygdala to other parts of the brain are similar between homosexuals and their opposite genders as shown through PET and MRI scans. For example, in gay men and straight women, there were more connections from the left amygdala. In lesbian women and straight men, there were more connections from the right amygdala. The natural 3%. 3% of people have always been born gay, lesbian, or bisexual throughout human history. The reason for that is because their mother's natural estrogen hormones were off balance during pregnancy. The most common reason for 3% of people being born that way is because of stress during their mother's pregnancy. If a woman experiences lots of stress during her pregnancy, her natural estrogen hormones become off balance. When her natural estrogen hormones become off balance during pregnancy, it alters the child's brain development. There has even been published studies done on rats and mice proving that stress during pregnancy caused the male rats to behave like female rats when they became adults because they developed female brains in utero. Those same published studies also showed that the female rats behaved like male rats when they became adults because they developed male brains in utero. Synthetic estrogen from birth control pills is emulating that natural process. The 1990s. I was born in 1987. Growing up, I soaked in every bit of American culture like a sponge. By the time I was 6 years old, I had seen just about every VHS movie ever made. I used to rent out all of the movies from every local video store when I was young. I watched thousands of movies and saw thousands of people's faces. Starting in 1993, I remember looking at certain actresses' faces in movies and wondering why their faces looked the way they did. I was noticing the chemical look in their faces/eyes long before I coined the chemical look term. In the mid-1990s, I went to a daily summer camp type thing for 3 or 4 summers at a nearby university called National Youth Sports Program. During those summers, I saw hundreds of college students' faces and eyes. By the late 1990s, I consciously noticed that people were changing in the United States. I couldn't pinpoint the change yet back then because it was only the early stages of what I would later discover. If you grew up in the United States seeing the culture from the 1980s to 1990s, there was a big change starting in the late 1990s. The number of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people started increasingly rising to a very noticeable level. I know for an absolute fact there were nowhere near as many gay, lesbian, and bisexual adults in the United States when I was a kid in the 1980s and early 1990s as there is now in 2016. The increasing amount of women using birth control pills in the 1970s was starting to show in the 1990s because more and more people were growing up after being exposed to synthetic estrogen during their womb development. College life, late 2000s. After I graduated high school in 2005, I skipped college and went straight to work. I've always had to pay my own bills, so that meant no college for me. I worked for the next 5 years. A lot of times I would go to nightclubs at the local university on weekends, but even still, I missed out on a lot of my youth. I missed out on those important college years. So I took the money I had saved up and moved to a really big college town at a large university. I decided I was going to live my college years after all. I was going to go out and party with all of the college students where I lived. By party, I mean having fun. I don't use drugs. I don't drink alcohol that often either. I set out to live the college lifestyle, and in doing so, I discovered something of an incredible magnitude. Starting in 2010, for 5 years, I lived the college lifestyle at a large university. Throughout that time, I traveled to a lot of other college towns too. I wanted to experience the college lifestyle all over the place. In 2010, I started realizing that there was an unusually high number of gay, lesbian, bisexual students where I lived. I'm talking about students walking around campus in the daytime and students who party at nighttime. I found that kind of odd, but I didn't think too much into it then. In 2011, I traveled to a lot of other college towns, and I was seeing a very unusual trend no matter which college I went to. By late 2012, I had seen and met so many thousands of college students all over the place, and I was really starting to think about a lot of things I was seeing all of the time. In early 2012, I reflected back over the past 2 years and realized that most students I had met at all of the colleges I had been to had been gay, lesbian, and bisexual. By this time, I could spot every single gay, lesbian, and bisexual person, no matter if they were openly out or if they didn't come out yet. Many of the college students had the chemical look in their eyes and faces because their mothers used the pills. I thought back to everybody I met in 2010 and realized many were gay, lesbian, and bisexual. I didn't realize the magnitude of things in 2010. The same thing for 2011. Many of the students I met had been gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Sometimes people talk about a more open society these days and how people are less afraid to come out as being gay, lesbian, and bisexual. But I knew what I had seen over the past 2.5 years was not normal. It didn't make any sense at all. Every single college I traveled to in the United States, up to 85% of the students were gay, lesbian, or bisexual. I knew something was deeply wrong. That was just humanly impossible for up to 85% of students to be gay, lesbian, and bisexual all over the map. That percentage was true though. For many months in 2012, I thought about this a lot. I was trying very much to figure this all out. I knew that there had to be a reason for everything I had seen since 2010. I thought about so many things. I thought back over my whole life. I knew as a kid growing up in the late 1980s and early 1990s that there was nowhere near as many gay, lesbian, and bisexual people back then, open or closet. One thing I knew for sure is that these students were all born this way. The reason for that is because all of them had similar physical and mental characteristics and traits. A skeptic could argue that a person can choose to take part in gay, lesbian, or bisexual acts. However, a mental choice does not cause people to develop physical features to their bodies overnight. There is a visible chemical look in people's faces and eyes if their mothers use birth control pills. By late 2012, I noticed that many people under the age of 25 born in the United States were either gay, lesbian, or bisexual. All across the United States, it was the same. Whatever was causing people to be gay and lesbian, I knew it had to have started in the 1980s or earlier, before they were born, and I knew it was nationwide. I knew some type of chemical was causing them to be born that way, so I thought of everything I possibly could think of as a cause for all of this. After thinking about that intensely, I realized the cause: birth control pills. I knew for sure that birth control pills were behind all of this, since birth control pills mess with a woman's natural estrogen hormones the same way in every woman. When those women eventually stop using birth control pills to have kids, the kids are born with similar physical and mental characteristics and traits. These people have the genetic looks of their parents, but they also have a distinct look caused directly from their mother's use of birth control pills: the chemical look. Birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, stays in women's bodies for many months even after they stop taking them. There is a visible chemical look in people's faces and eyes if their mothers use birth control pills. A large majority of USA college students now have the chemical look in their faces and eyes. Many college students whose mothers use the pills are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Spring break, March 2013, Panama City Beach, Florida. Spring break, 1992, Panama City Beach, Florida. Club La Vela, bikini contest in 1992, early 1990s pool deck. In 1992, most girls didn't wear any nose piercings, face piercings, tattoos, or backwards baseball caps. Their faces and bodies were more feminine looking, and most girls were straight during spring break 1992. Spring break 2013, Panama City Beach, Florida. I took this picture right behind Club La Vela in 2013. In 2013, girls with backwards baseball caps, nose piercings, face piercings, and tattoos were a common sight. Most girls were lesbian or bisexual during spring break 2013. One of the few straight girls I met in Panama City was a local that recently moved there from Germany. Much less mothers in Eastern Europe use birth control pills compared to USA mothers. I have traveled to many colleges and universities around the United States, and it's always up to 85% of students that are gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Even though I have seen thousands and thousands of these people, I knew there was one place that I still needed to go, where I could see tens of thousands of college students all at once. In March of 2013, I went to Panama City Beach, Florida, and rented an apartment I had found on Craigslist for the entire month. Every day I went to the beach behind Club La Vela in Spinacre from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Every night I walked the streets downtown where the clubs are. I went bar hopping at all the nightclubs and bars. The Walmart in Panama City Beach was packed every day, so every day I would go to Walmart and walk around seeing the students shopping. Most all the students in Walmart every day were gay, lesbian, and bisexual. During the whole month of March, I didn't drink at all. I was in Panama City Beach for the sole purpose of researching everything and everyone around me. Just like a scientist works in a lab, Panama City Beach was my lab to study. During the entire month of March, I saw that the majority of the college students at Panama City Beach were gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Over 500,000 students came to Panama City Beach during March. I don't know the exact number of students that I saw, but it was tens of thousands at minimum. That's my short review of Panama City Beach, Florida for the entire month of March 2013. That review is also nearly identical to what any college bars and nightclubs in America are like too. I have a bunch of pictures and videos from my trip verifying what I saw during the month of March 2013. Common traits of people whose mothers use birth control pills. Most people whose mothers use birth control pills have the chemical look in their eyes and face. Most people whose mothers use birth control pills have a chemical look in their eyes and face. I can look at anyone's face and eyes and instantly tell if their mothers use birth control pills. The chemical look is universal. However, each birth control pill brand has a unique formula creating a distinct look in people's faces and eyes. I can visibly group people together based on which brands of birth control pills their mothers used. Many guys and girls look like clones of each other if their mothers use the same brand of birth control pills. Anyone can see the chemical look in people's faces and eyes by paying attention to people's faces and eyes. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual people whose mothers never use birth control pills don't have the chemical look. Birth control pills are 1. Causing a chemical look in people's faces and eyes, permanent thing that happened during womb development. 2. Causing males to develop female brains in utero, and causing females to develop male brains in utero. I'll gladly take part in any controlled study proving that I can spot the chemical look in people's faces and eyes. The study would require 100 college-age girls randomly mixed together in a lineup, 50 girls whose mothers used birth control pills before pregnancy, and 50 girls whose mothers never used the pills. I could easily visibly identified the 50 girls whose mothers used birth control pills and even grouped many of those 50 girls into subgroups based on which specific brands of pills their mothers used. That would all be accomplished from me just looking at those 100 girls' faces and eyes. I could also repeat the same success rate in a group of 100 randomly mixed guys as well. I've seen the chemical look in thousands of people's faces and eyes. I'm an expert on this. The chemical look is now so common that literally anyone can see the look in people's faces and eyes. Just pay attention. This video will show more examples of the chemical look shortly. Many people whose mothers use birth control pills often get tattoos, face piercings, ear gauges, and dyed hair. Usually the people who get those things are on the gay, lesbian, and bisexual side of the scale. Travis Barker has the chemical look extremely visible in his eyes. This girl looks like a clone of Angelina Jolie. The chemical look. Table of contents. Brands of birth control pills. Facial comparisons. Guys. The chemical look in their faces and eyes. Girls. The chemical look in their faces and eyes. These next pictures are side-by-side picture comparisons of people whose mothers use the same brand of birth control pills. Always their eyes, and usually their faces too, look like clones of each other. The chemical look is from people being bathed in the same exact synthetic estrogen for 9 months during their womb development. Pay close attention to people's eyes. Brands of birth control pills. Facial comparisons. These people's mothers use the same brand of birth control pills. Guys, the chemical look in their faces and eyes. These are some more pictures of guys who have the chemical look in their faces and eyes. The chemical look in guys' faces and eyes is more subtle than in girls' faces and eyes. It's easier to see the chemical look in guys' faces and eyes in person. Girls, the chemical look in their faces and eyes. These are some more pictures of girls who have the chemical look in their faces and eyes. The chemical look in girls' faces and eyes is usually always very visible. It's easier to see the chemical look in girls' faces and eyes compared to guys. Once you get familiar with the chemical look, you can see in anyone's eyes and face if their mothers use birth control pills. To see more of the visible chemical look in people's eyes and faces, pay attention to people's eyes and faces that you see every day. Go to college towns where many of the students are birth control sons and birth control daughters. Look at profile pictures on plentyoffish.com. The dating website called Plenty of Fish is the biggest free dating site in the world. Go on to pof.com and set the search criteria to I'm a male seeking a female ages 18 to 25 years old. Select United States, then choose any of the 50 states. Sort by last visit. Many of the girls and guys on Plenty of Fish have the chemical look in their eyes and faces. College towns have the highest concentration of people whose mothers use birth control pills. Many college students have the chemical look in their eyes and faces. Conclusion. There won't be any conclusion until birth control pills and all other synthetic estrogens are banned worldwide. The fight ahead is getting pharmaceutical companies to stop producing birth control pills. Countries must impose bans on synthetic estrogen to get that to happen. The pharmaceutical companies that produce birth control pills make billions of dollars annually, and they won't want to lose their billion-dollar profits. Preserving natural human life is more important than any amount of money. There is an increasing rise each year in the amount of gay, lesbian, and bisexual and transgender people because their mothers use birth control pills. I caution all women to never use birth control pills because they will harm your children in the womb. Your child's fragile brain development will be bathed in synthetic estrogen during pregnancy. Women also should not use any type of pharmaceutical pills, drugs, alcohol, vaccines, flu shots, or any type of drug during pregnancy. All of the information in this video is factual information. Diethylstilbestrol pills, Primodos pills, birth control pills, soy, phthalates, BPA, etc. are synthetic estrogens that are very harmful and dangerous to children developing in their mother's womb. The number of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people in the United States and around the world is going to keep continually rising until birth control pills are banned. Birth control pills will eventually be banned worldwide. For the time being, don't use the pills. Spread this video. You can help spread the warning in this video by posting on vk.com, Facebook, posting on Twitter, posting on blogs and social media websites, emailing your friends and family. Spread the word to everyone you know about how birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, are causing children to be born gay, lesbian, and bisexual. All brands of birth control pills are causing these birth defects. Tell every female you know using birth control pills to immediately stop. Tell every female that hasn't used them yet to never use birth control pills. Support the worldwide ban of birth control pills in every way that you can. Each birth control pill company makes around $2 billion profit every year. They may deny the facts in this video in order to protect their multi-billion-dollar industry. I'm making $0 from this video. Even if the birth control pill companies tried to bribe me and offer me $10 million to not disperse this video across the internet, I would not take the money. I'll choose to protect children over any amount of money. Oftentimes, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration will ignore drug side effects unless enough people complain because the FDA is corrupt. And at that point, the FDA is forced to do something because of the complaints. Please download this video to your computer and re-upload this video to warn other people about the dangers that birth control pills, synthetic estrogen, pose to children. Condoms are the only safe method of birth control.